Good afternoon, everyone. That is the wrong. That is the wrong show intro right there. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the NWO show, your source for everything New World. We've got ourselves a good show today.
Hello, people.
Coming out strong right off the start. I'm sure you guys recognize McLeod, my lovely co-host. It's going to be a good afternoon.
It is. It really is. We got a lot. We got a lot to cover, actually.
Yeah. So, kicking off things right from the break is the question of: is New World going to come out on the 28th? According to the official handle for New World, we assure you that our launch date for New World has not changed. New World is set to launch on September 28th, 2021. Please keep an eye on official channels for blah blah blah. That said, pretty sure it's coming out this time. I think.
Oh yeah.
We saw a lot of improvements going into the beta. Or going into the open beta. We know that there were some bugs. There were some bugs we didn't see the first time, but there were some bugs, and that's fine.
It's like a bit of a spider web kind of thing. Like you move a few things, and like something else like twinges and you just don't want to what you don't want to do is you don't want to twinge it so much that it breaks, right? So that's the kind of that's the subtlety when it comes to developing a game, and especially optimizing a game.
Exactly. So that's kind of the fun of developing games, is that fundamentally there's you fix one thing, it breaks something else, and there's always known issues where you're constantly trying to work on them. There was an audio bug. The chat just talked about that. The audio bug is first that I've noticed in the history of playing the game, even. It goes back a long time.
I honestly think that is a bug just on optimization. I think that is just something that happened because they were optimizing some stuff. I think it's either an optimization thing or it's an issue regarding memory leaking and essentially getting to the point where you don't have enough allocatable physical memory or allocatable sort of memory to be able to keep certain audio aspects going, as it were. And so it's deprioritized and then falls off the back of the truck, as it were, right?
Yeah. We know there was a number of other issues. I know I still crashed out once during a war. However, wars seem to be significantly more stable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, it definitely is. They're definitely a lot more stable now than they were previously. I can testify to that, being in the thick of it a few times.
Fundamentally, I think a lot was fixed in terms of the larger issues. There were still some issues in terms of some bugs, some glitches, some exploits that people, I think, were potentially trying to keep hidden for a little bit longer than they should have. That said, it was hey, we got Lore Seekers cast in the chat. Excited to see them. I actually one of the things I'm gonna take a moment on this, because one of the things that's great about the New World community is that a lot of the shows, a lot of the casters out there, all it's a welcoming community. It's meant to be a welcoming community. We've strived to put together groups of people that help build up groups as they come in, and I saw Lore Seekers cast come in a few weeks back, and one, they make a great show. Two, it's always good to bring new people in, get that new eye on it, get and basically just help build the community. So it's awesome to see new creators coming in. So that's good to see them. Thanks, guys. You know, fundamentally, it all comes down to building something. You know, we're all building up to launch. You know, some of these shows have been going. You know, I think between us, Cali Gold, and Studio Loot, I think yes, are probably the three oldest.
Yeah.
In terms of
Redbird.
You know, yeah, Redbird and Bordy, probably the oldest content creators for New World. You know, shortly after that, you know, Sir Medieval and some of the other ones came in, and you know, they've all been doing, you know, phenomenal work. I know we're starting to work a little bit closer with Studio Loop and newworldfans.com, which we highly recommend.
Oh yeah, we definitely do. Yeah.
You know, so like I'm watching the community, I'm looking at things, and I'm actually really happy to see like a lot of the enthusiasm, a lot of the new stuff coming out, a lot of the creators that are getting involved, and you know, just you know, it really is a different view and a really different take on things that we haven't seen in a while, comparatively to you know, comparatively to back when we were in, you know, alpha stages, where we were streaming to 20 people and it was you know, a casual time, you know. But it's nice to see things kind of hit off and make a run at things. I got completely distracted from my initial train of thought. We're trying to keep to an actual show notes this time, and I'm naturally very bad at that because, one, I just woke up from a short nap. For those that don't know, we did play the open beta. You're probably like, but wait, you didn't stream it. What's happened? You know, I unfortunately, for the last couple of weeks here, have been dealing with the flu, which, who knew, is still a thing. You know, in the age of COVID,
and isn't so much of a cakewalk. Although, you know, comparatively to COVID, is a cakewalk, but still, you know. In your normal day-to-day life, you know, flu is a bit of a bitch anyway, right? It's just not going to put you
in hospital. It can and will knock you on your butt. Like, you know, it is no joke this year. It took me down for the better part of a week. And I mean, I'm still, like, I just woke up from a nap because, you know, I couldn't keep going after work today. And
well, it was one of those weird things where you kind of like it kind of hit you just as you're coming out of like transitioning from nights back to like regular sort of, you know, regular office hours, right? So not only are you trying to deal with, you know, trying to get yourself back into the rhythm of like a, you know, regular sort of, you know, awake when it's light and like asleep when it's dark.
Yeah.
But now you've got like flu basically kicking your ass as well, and that's just like a bit of a double whammy, right?
Yeah. So naturally, you know, that was it was unfortunate that we didn't stream a lot. We did get some decent recording. We're going to be doing later in the show. We're going to show a couple of views from one of the wars we participated in, and we'll probably develop this more into like an anatomy of a fight type video. And talk a lot about siege equipment and the value of, you know, significant placement and usage of siege equipment. You know, one of the stealth things that got buffed in the open beta was siege equipment, and it actually got a really sizable buff.
Because like, that's one of the things that we're going to cover is the fact that, like, you know, there were patch notes, and you know, this time, other than, you know, unlike the closed beta, we did actually, you know, preemptively save patch notes, we also saved their current issues and bugs list kind of thing as well. So we've got a separate bit of that. We can kind of go through that as well. But like, essentially, you know, the list of changes for the open beta was, you know, fairly respectable. Like it's definitely pretty, you know, it's a fair amount of changes. But there were definitely changes in there in the open beta that weren't on that list. You know, there's two that I know of specifically. You've mentioned, you know, the fact that there were like stealth buffs on siege equipment. You know, I'm sure there's more, and I'm sure we did encounter a few more. It's just like they when we were brainstorming and coming up with the doc for today, like just like it wasn't coming into my head. Like there were a few that were, but like, you know, I'm fairly certain a lot missed the doc, as it were.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll make it into the end release notes when we finally hit launch. That said, today I wanna cover today's news, and we'll get rolling into kind of the longer form stuff here, because there's actually quite a bit to cover beyond the closed beta, and a lot of stuff that's happened really recently here. So today we actually got a developer diary, and we're going to take a moment and showcase their work here, and we're going to talk a little bit about ebb and scale reach, and, you know, the potential, the obvious potential of New World post launch, and where things are going to go. You know, we've seen this coming for a long time. You know, obviously ebb and scale was added, you know, a few months back. You know, we knew it was going to be a thing, but we also know that the island's not complete. So, you know, this kind of brings people in and discusses fundamentally what the developers go through when they're adding in a new culture into the game. So
which is good, because like sometimes that kind of thing can, you know, you have to be a little bit sensitive and delicate about it.
Yeah, so let's give it a go, and we'll see what they've prepared for us. Oh. Let's start it over. I bet.
Ebb and Scale Reach, like every other part of New World, is ancient. It's been around for a long, long time.
You go from this dark landscape to something lush that's verdant.
Ebb and Scale is an endgame zone, and with that we wanted to really ratchet up the challenge.
People have been landing on Eternum since the beginning of time. Some of them are out in search of Eternum, whereas others just got here.
So I gotta pause this for a second. Does anybody else think Scott looks exactly like the guy from Independence Day? Like the crazy scientist? Like, I'm like, just putting that out there. Like, you know, I feel like somebody dared him to like grow his hair to like full length, like, you know, like,
for whatever reason he went like, I know, I'm gonna go with the Brent Spinner, you know, long-haired sort of scientist look from Independence Day.
Yeah. Or like the Witcher's dad, like, you know, like straight up, Scott's a great guy. Just, you know, I feel like every time I see him, he looks more and more like the guy from Independence Day, and it's just. It's quite comical. Sorry.
Here by mistake. Throughout history, people have had words for Eternum. It could be, you know, El Dorado. It could be Eden.
There were plenty of adventurers that came before us, but that's part of the excitement, is getting to learn who they were and what brought them there.
For centuries and even millennia, different cultures, civilizations have sought out this place of legend. To some people, it could be Atlantis. To others, it could be where the Fountain of Youth exists. but there's always been some draw of finding this mysterious place.
That's one of the most interesting things about this game as an artist, because we wanted Eternum to feel like this mythical place where different cultures that didn't exist near each other in real history could clash here. There's something special about that.
It is heavily based on realistic elements, but we also wanted to add some sort of new world flavor to it. We wanted to add supernatural and fantastic magical elements to it. We pulled a lot of reference from different cultures and different beauty.
Ebonscale is different from the rest of Eternum because it was our first step into creating a totally new theme, and we wanted to create something really unique.
We really wanted the world to feel new and inviting and feel like there's always adventure over the next hill. And so Ebonscale is an example. We really wanted that to have a unique feeling to it, that it is very lush and tropical. There's this wistful, calm kind of beauty, but then also corruption and twisting to that nature. And so this like dichotomy of the different feelings that are going on there.
The mechanics of how Eternum attracts humans to its shores are somewhat of a mystery in the game. Empress Zhao Taiying from China went into voluntary exile after her brother betrayed her and took over the throne. And she led her people to Eternum seeking a new life. Some humans come here because they're inspired just simply to explore. Others are specifically seeking this place. The Empress and her people were just looking for a new home at first.
In the player's leveling journey, they're at a fairly high level, almost to the level cap, when they reach Ebonscale.
We bring a whole new family of corrupted enemies. We have the corrupted musketeer, a bunch of corrupted melee, and it really brings with it a new challenge, a new set of enemies, and the POIs are super challenging.
The leader and most powerful figure in Ebonscale Reach is the Empress, and she originally had her throne usurped by her half-brother, and she was exiled and looking for a place to settle with all her loyal supporters. And she stumbled upon Eternum and soon discovered the power that it could bestow. Part of that was making compromises with her ideals to secure that power. Having found that, now her plan is to go back and take back what she believes is her birthright.
I myself designed Empress. I wanted to design her really regal and graceful, but at the same time when she started attacking you, it's really terrifying. I looked at a lot of kung fu moves and Chinese dancing to reference her animation and attacks.
The player will encounter the Empress at the end of the Dynasty Shipyard, which is this amazingly difficult expedition where players have to go in and they see the fleet that the Empress is building, this fleet of ships that she plans to go back and take what is rightfully hers. So the player has to go throughout the expedition, has to sort of destroy all the ships while a bunch of enemies are trying to stop them. And at the end of this, they finally encounter the Empress. So super challenging fight.
So from the team's perspective, when we're introducing new cultures, it's so important to us to properly do it. We want to make sure that this comes across as a celebration of that culture.
Creating Ebonscale Reach, the team went through months and months of research and then also working with some of our other geopolitical teams, because what we want to do is be honorary to the source material, but we want to also view it through the lens of Eternum and the struggles that exist there.
This is the most diverse team that I've ever worked on, and we definitely try to leverage the diversity within the team as much as possible to make sure that the cultures are properly represented.
I mean, it's critical for us to get these things inspired by those cultures in the most interesting way, but again, to make sure we're being respectful and accurate.
We've just touched the surface. We have some pretty cool ideas on where we want to take the story and the journey we want to take everyone on. We just can't wait to share that with you.
Not too shabby.
Absolutely. And good catch to the stream for catching that our background music was definitely clashing with the with that.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the important things I want to bring out about this is that obviously this isn't the only culture that's going to be added. Ebonscale Reach is one of many. We've already seen any of the shipwrecks are good telltale signs of things to come, and we've seen Viking shipwrecks, so you can virtually guarantee that that's one of the things coming in. We've already seen Romans. We've already seen a lot of these other different cultures that are out there mentioned, or at least like have some kind of pretext in either the art or the lore that allows us to really allows the studio to build in whatever additional cultures they want to. There's no limit here. Your scope is every civilization for the history of the world, past to present. And before anybody gives me crap for the potential of bringing in AK-47 in a new world, there are ways to bring in the present without causing balance problems.
We had this kind of discussion actually in the Discord, right? Like at one point, it was a case of like, well, if this is, because it came up in an interview at one point, like quite a while back, where they as in the developers being interviewed, they described New World as a time-bending like epic tale of adventure, right? Which essentially means that like if it's time bending, it means that potentially we could be seeing all different sorts of things from all different sorts of times. And the thing with the thing that kind of concerns people, especially when you start playing around with the chronology and like the capacity of weapons, modern day versus back then, is like the damage that an AK-47 and the ability to kill stuff with an AK-47 is huge, but it also requires exceptional precision compared to, say, making an arrow or a musket cartridge, right? So chances are, if at any particular point, if you end up like finding an AK-47 in New World, chances are you're not going to have that many rounds and that many magazines until it's basically
useless,
null and void as a weapon, right?
So since this got referenced in chat, I want to show people that this does in fact exist. I'm going to borrow somebody's video. This is the ghost ship. It's in frame 1 second. He goes to look at it, and poof, it's gone.
Oof, fleeting.
So, there is a lot of hidden things that might not be what we think they are, or a lot of things that they're looking to add that add this element of mystery to things, add this element of mythology. Like one of the cool things with the way that they did the Empress is they bring in this ability. See if I can find the actual frame itself that has like her attack animation.
Oh, with the sort of magical sort of dragon attack, right? Yeah, it's a little further along there.
And her
There you go.
really big.
So, like, they do a really good job of adding in, the supernatural elements, but also like the mythological elements, and keeping to a lot of the, artistic vision, within that culture.
Yeah. I mean, you have a degree of being able to play around with it because, like, obviously, these sort of styles, it stylistically is always influenced by, real genuine cultures. But obviously, when you get to the point that that you have these sort of cultures, they end up becoming separated from the real world, right? And having the ability to sort of, independently develop and be obviously influenced by other other things sort of around them in Eternal as well. So there's a degree of degree of independence that they do have when it comes to developing styles, but like they can definitely draw on inspiration from the real world for sure.
Absolutely. And from there, they're like they take the elements that, like, this is a really classical, like, type move. Like this, the move that's showing on the screen here with the glowing dragon. But like, this is something that you just wouldn't, like, in terms of like Azoth, it adds this X factor of, she's been able to now mold the ability to something, very powerful, very, very magical here, but add something to it. We talk about the voice lines where she speaks corrupted. The fact that she can speak both corrupted and not is actually a very interesting concept in itself. Normally, a lot of the lore and a lot of the writing, most of the like line soldiers, the corrupted that you run into in the world, can't speak. They lose the ability to speak their original language, and they end up starting to write in corrupted. They end up starting to talk in corrupted, and they no longer have that ability. But a lot of the bosses, the Isabella and the Siren Queen, as well as Empress Zhao here, all have the ability to maintain their original language, which shows this level of mastery over something. Isabella, like, for those that don't know, Isabella is like, I'm not gonna say that, like, any of these are like particularly scarier than the other, but like some of the lore about Isabella, in terms of like how she got her followers to listen, in terms of like repeatedly killing them and drowning them and like keel hauling her people until they listened, she's crazy. Like, Zhao is a bit more of like a sad story. She was exiled, even though she was the rightful heir of the throne, like the whole works. And then, the Siren Queen is yet another, a whole different story, but Isabella is just legit crazy. Like,
and there's talk about whether the Siren Queen and Isabella are one and the same. That'll probably be revealed at some point, in the storyline as such, whether that is the case or whether that's not the case. People do sort of take certain things and try and diagnose what's been said, sort of thing. Specifically, there was a recent video, kind of about the corrupted, essentially, sort of very much like an RP kind of form of, like, someone, like a character essentially inside of the game, describing the corrupted and that kind of thing. But you have to really kind of realize that, you have to take it in context, particularly, because at the start it's a case of, He's not telling. He doesn't say that he's telling you absolute facts. He says that like that's his, that's his perception. That's what he kind of thinks, right? And that doesn't mean specifically that it is absolutely true. And I think a lot of people who've created content out of that may be going down a bit of a rabbit hole in the wrong direction. You never know. We'll find out. But just keeping that one, keep that one in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there. She's not as sane as she appears to be. I also think there's potentially a link there with Captain Thorpe, who at one point in time actually appears to also be referred to as Commander Thorpe, which I don't know if anybody keeps up to date on naval ranks, but those are not the same thing. Commanders work for captains. So just putting that out there.
I mean, if it was Commander Thorpe previously and then Captain Thorpe, we'd be like, oh, he's unless he's been demoted, unless he had a bit of a coming together with Isabella, and Isabella basically demoted him. Like, I don't know. You never know.
So, with that, we're gonna keep things rolling, but we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the cultural component to this and the post-launch. Obviously, New World has more to come after launch. Some people have mentioned, hey, it's only $40. What can we really expect? Well, the reality is, it's $40. There's going to be a cash shop that has, cosmetics and stuff in it. So, they're going to have a renewable income stream. On top of that, they've mentioned other ways that they've looked at, but haven't confirmed any specifics. That said, we'll see what happens. They have in the past mentioned a 10-year plan. You had to be in the community for a while at this point to really know about the 10-year plan. But the 10-year plan, no monthly payments. Fundamentally, their goal is to continue to grow the game over time. This might mean that there's going to be expansion packs. This might mean that there might be battle pass type systems. They haven't really ironed any of that out. But one of the things that I really want to hit on here is that the fun with Amazon games specifically is they're not tied to anything specific. They're gonna develop the game over the course of time with the community. This is why we didn't get all up in arms about the cash shop. One, we knew about it for the last 2.5 years, 3 years. It's been, anybody who's upset that there is a cash shop, hard stop. You should really reevaluate where you are in the gaming space, because that's just the inevitability.
We're not in 2003, guys. This is 2021. The cash shops are just a par of the course by this point.
Yeah, and especially if you compare the original vision of the game, the very I often refer to it as the very Rust-like. It's that survival base builder. Build it all up and risk a lot. That original version of the game, frankly, wasn't that difficult to create. There was a lot of technical components to building a game like this that people don't see, not having any loading screens as you go through the open world is huge. That is actually a complex thing. And it's one thing to do it in a single player game. that's one thing. But to do it in a MMO where you could have hundreds of people, coming and going,
well, thousands of people,
thousands of people coming and going, it's an entirely different story to get that kind of server meshing put together to really enable what we see and feel in the New World.
Yeah, and one of those things that I think you're kind of like slowly, like, moving us up towards, when it comes to developing things that allow you to be able to have these great vistas that we've seen in the open beta, right? Like when you get the opportunity to just look out into the open expanse of New World, of the Eternum, right? It's a case of like that comes at a technical cost that is actually quite high, like a lot higher than you may think. It's something that you don't get to see or get to experience too much in comparison to like other games like something like Rust. When you're talking about games like Rust, like you have like max player caps of under 500, right? That is a different thing comparatively to to New World, when you have a player cap of seemingly 2,500, 3,500, something along those lines at the moment. Like it's apparently going to be going up on release. And a massive map that you can see, multiple kilometers.
Absolutely.
So,
like these kind of things weren't easy to do. But the original version of the game was so much easier. Like, it was so much smaller. The scope was a $40 game. But what we have in front of us now is no longer a $40 game. And a number of people in chat have mentioned this. I know I saw somebody said, "Oh, they've only been involved for a little bit. They've already got 300 hours." I can tell you, I've been involved for a long time, and you got to add a digit to catch up to how many hours we're at. I'm well over 3,000 hours at this point. McLeod's up
essentially,
there with me.
Yeah, essentially, me and A's, like, even though we have obviously spent for the deluxe edition, we've already extracted, or like way in excess of like the value that we've put in already. And if you look at games in that kind of way, sort of like it's a hobby, and you generally tend to sort of put some money into a hobby if you want to enjoy it and that kind of thing. So in that kind of sense, looking at what do you get for $40 in a different hobby other than gaming, right? It doesn't get you that much. It definitely doesn't get you triple digit amount of hours of enjoyment, right? Let alone in the thousands like we have.
I generally, like, when I rate like a single player game, something like Assassin's Creed, I generally weigh it out to be $1 per hour is about what I'm going to pull out of it, given I'm also one of those people who will go and 100% complete those kind of games. So it'll take me a while to do all of that. But you look at the scope that the game has increased to over the last couple of years, and fundamentally it's so much bigger than it was. It's there's a lot more depth. The story is really kind of massively increased. The amount of enemy types and variations out there are significantly advanced. One of the things that I always hit on, whenever we talk about enemy variations, a lot of people will play 20 minutes and they'll go, oh well, I've only seen 15 wolves and they're all the same. Well, level 5 wolves are one thing. Level 60 wolves are completely different.
Oh yeah.
Like a level 5 wolf is gonna let you hit it. it's going to be a relatively easy engagement. Level 30 Wolf is going to start to do things like dodge arrows. And a level 60 Wolf is going to basically make you feel like you're attacking a wolf on a pogo stick.
I was going to say, it's kind of like if you take a wolf and attach pogo sticks to all of their legs. Like, it's just like, it's impossible. It's like you swing and it's just like you're just hitting air. It's like those wolves kind of learned like the art of kung fu or something, right?
Oh yeah, so when people say that it's just it's just one type, it's just a recycled mob, it's not. Like, there are entire movesets that you don't see until you start dealing with higher level enemies, and that's by design. You want to be able to consistently consistently train players at that low level. So you don't want content to be too difficult at the low level, but you want it to train them as they go and have it get more and more complex. Have the engagements take on a little bit more depth. And when you start taking on the high level content, you're taking on high level NPCs when they are chugging as many potions as you are.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that kind of thing. Like the moment you're taking on a level 50 or level 60 corrupted miner, and all of a sudden he pops a potion, and you're like, but I just had you at low. What is it like?
What is
and it
this
starts
bullshit?
mimicking you. It's like, what is this? Like, I just yeah. It makes it a much different experience. But it's not something that you see at that low level, because you're still fighting against mobs at that low level that are designed to train you to how to do the content, to learn how to dodge, to learn how to block. So many people just take the hit, like, they'll just sit there and swing. And in the high level content, you can't do that. You have to block. You have to dodge. And learning that kind of stuff early is just really, really important. And I think the game does a good job of scaling up the AI to be so much more than it is. If you know how to block and dodge and use the life staff, then you're in a real good spot.
There's been there's been some fairly interesting and really kind of amazing sort of videos coming out of people fighting one versus many. There was one that came out that I hadn't seen, that was actually from the closed beta, that was actually really, really impressive. But it's one of those sorts of things where the sort of the envelope can be pushed so much, and a lot of people kind of think fighting in the start, or even doing PvE in the starting areas is all that the game has to offer, and it really isn't. Like, once you realize that the area that you started in is only really kind of good for you up to level 25. Up on after that point, it kind of, you end up getting sort of like diminishing returns when it comes to sort of XP and all that kind of stuff. You need to sort of you need to kind of move on, right? You need to move on to new pastures, to more challenging kind of situations. Then it becomes the game starts to actually come alive. And one of the things that I didn't actually even realize, that I only found out like right at the end of the open beta, was and we're gonna do I'll probably have like a very small YouTube video about it, because it's just kind of it was an interesting kind of thing, especially from an RP perspective. You can go, like, once you're at or past the level requirement for that particular area, if you go to the innkeeper, there's like a dialogue box saying like, oh, what should I do now? And there's literally spoken dialogue basically telling you and directing you to different locations for you to go and explore, and that your skill set is would be better suited over there, be more useful and more valuable going there. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and there's stuff like that they've added in that I think really adds a lot of depth. It starts to push you along. For those that don't know, you also have an XP difference. So like if you're consistently taking on lower level, significantly lower level NPCs, it actually won't give you as much XP for killing them, because they're no longer within the level range that you should be killing. So it kind of pushes you to go, hey, go into these higher level zones, go do the higher level content. You'll get better XP for it. And, I think that's important. A number of the things, I'm watching chat and looking at a number of things they're talking about as well here. For those that don't know, the bottom left-hand corner, we've got a couple of logos. The one on the far left is that we are an Amazon Game Studio creator.
Yep.
Been involved in the creator program since it was launched, basically.
Yeah, we jumped in there early.
I've got one of the original. That's actually where the hat came from. Was the initial invite thank you for services rendered, I guess, to the community and Amazon Games. So it was a good token of thanks from them. So I appreciate that. They've also supported us with a number of other things. For those that watch the show from the beginning, some of the transitions and the intro screens, are assets generated by Amazon Game Studio, and per FCC guidance, we have to say that they support us because of that.
Yeah.
So, there's a ton of things that, obviously there's more to the game that potentially we haven't seen yet. And I want to talk a little bit about what that could be. For anybody that's played an extended amount of time, like the closed beta was about 2 weeks. Apologies. You got into that level 60 content, and you start noticing that the storyline completely drops off after the depths. And I believe that that's by design. There's more to come. The story is obviously not finished in the versions that we've played, but there's also a substantial amount more that we have yet to be shown. Much of the large scale testing when it comes to betas, let me hit on this for a little bit here. When you're developing a game, phases and how you name them are really important. So, talking about alphas. Alphas are designed for content generation and core gameplay mechanic generation. So you're focusing on systems. Does this system work? Does the attribute system work? Does the gearing system work? Does the AI systems work? Does the server meshing work? Then from there, once you develop those into a minimum viable product, you then need to test them at scale. So,
yes.
Betas are meant to test servers and the overall minimum viable product in terms of, is this going to fail when you add a lot of people? So, what we saw between the closed beta and the open beta was a dramatic shift in the number of players on the map. This was very artfully done because they didn't see you don't see the number. You know, when you pick a server, you see, you know, low, medium, high. You don't see
you don't see an exact,
you know, you don't
absolute
see
number,
an
right?
exact number there. For minimum viable product, I know it's a rough word to use, you know, but like when it comes to product management or product any kind of project management, that's a term used there. You know, also keep in mind we're not developers, so you know we're gonna use the terms that So, but anyways, you know, between the closed beta and the open beta, they almost doubled the size of the server. And this was very, very obvious whenever you went into a town. You know, the server on the chart would show medium, but you'd walk into town and there would be hundreds of people.
Oh yeah, it would be buzzing.
Yeah, you know, we would be absolutely
And it wouldn't
buzzing.
just be that town. It would be
Yeah.
like, you know, say for example, it would be buzzing in say Everfall, but like you go back, you go down to like Windswood would be like, you know, fucking heaving as well. Like,
There wasn't nearly as much. There wasn't nearly as much of a problem in terms of like respawn rates, and I know that there's instantly people are going to turn and be like, yeah, but there was this, you know, Henry took, you know, 6 years to respawn, you know. Okay, yes, there were some bosses that apparently were not added to that dynamic table for respawns, but overall, you know, the missions where it's go kill 6 of these guys or go kill 10 of these guys, you know, that was much different. You know, it was a much different feel than it has been in the past. And I think that they're
one of the
really off to a
interesting
good place on that now.
And so one of the interesting things about it, and you know, it is apparent, and it's, you know, noticeable. Obviously, people noticed it, you know, because you know it's being mentioned in chat that, you know, you went to some of these higher kind of high graded kind of towns, right? Sort of the towns in the sort of higher levels, and they were sort of like ghost towns. But like, you have to kind of understand that, you know, people congregate in the towns based on, you know, sort of kind of the level that they're at, and the sort of like the activity and the sort of like the skill level that they can kind of like deal with. So when people get up to those, you know, level 45s, level 55s, level 60s, you know, kind of thing, you know, that's when those towns will start to populate. And so if you kind of think of it in terms of longevity, right, you know, the more people who are on the server, the more, you know, they progress towards to level 60, the more the sort of like the starter towns are going to sort of start to depopulate a bit, and the more the sort of like the higher level towns are going to start to populate, like, you know, considerably. And so, you know, with that kind of, hopefully with the sort of degree of churn and influx of new players like constantly into servers, it means that, like, you know, more and more of the map is just going to, you know, be, you know, buzzing basically.
Oh yeah. And I mean, some of the other things, you know, I want to hit on one thing. You know, there's going to be a lot of people when the game hits launch that, you know, we've played this a lot. Like, you know, for me, I'm probably not gonna, you know, as much as I said I was going to take it easy in the betas, still ended up as very high level. Like in the closed beta,
it's almost,
was, you know,
we were in
60, and the open beta, I think it made it to like mid 30s.
It's funny because, like, from our perspective, like, it wasn't like we had a plan and then we went, nah, let's ditch the plan, let's definitely go hardcore on this. It was almost like we went on autopilot, because I was there kind of going like, I'm not really gonna, you know, smash it that much. And then, you know, in 4 days I put in 50 hours, right? And it's like, well, that was not exactly the plan, but, you know,
yeah.
it's just autopilot at this point in time, right? Like we've done this so many times that, like, it's almost the standard operating procedure when it comes to, you know, starting a new character in New World. Like, You know.
Now that said, for the people that, like for McLeod and I, this is second nature. We've got this, mapped out in our heads. We know exactly what to do. When we hit a mission, we're not looking for the quest objective because we already know where it is. We're not looking for that 8th crate. We know where it is.
Although I will say, and other streamers have said it as well, that the new quest markers, like visible quest markers, are actually really, really good as well. Like,
I want to Peppered Farm this for a second here, because Peppered Farm remembers back when those quest markers didn't exist at all. Like,
oh my god,
back in my day, that quest marker was gone, and you had to look for the blood on the ground.
Oh yeah, there's that. Like, so there's that, and then there's also the, for example, there's the soil samples. Not only down in Windswood kind of area when you're kind of like trying to find those. The soil sample markers on those 2 big ass farms, right? Mm-hmm. And when there's no quest markers as to where the hell they are, and you're literally sort of like you end up basically sort of traipsing around that farm almost like forensically, like back and forth until you actually find a random piece of ground which looks exactly the same as every other piece of ground, but it's just somehow for some reason interactable, right? Yeah. So there's that, and then there's also the one all the way up in Brightwood, right, where you're sort of going around this town that's like fucking eerie and spooky, and there was no quest markers whatsoever as to sort of finding these soil samples there as well. Like, oh Jesus, like that was tough going when those quest markers were not there in any way, shape, or form. I'm so glad that they're actually, super visible now.
Yeah, that actually adds a lot to it. I had to take the moment to be like, okay, hey, like,
yeah.
Keep it. It's an iterative process, and they've come a long way on some of these. Like, sure, it might sound simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds to add something like that. So like,
and seemingly there's a few things that break it as well, like, because they had I think they played around with how obvious those markers were, and like you play around with them, and sometimes they're not really that obvious, sometimes they are, and then sometimes they're just like gone, right? Mm-hmm. And that's they've gone far, and I think with them being with those sorts of things being obvious, I think it's I don't feel that it's absolutely necessary for them to be super esoteric or kind of hard to find and stuff, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with how they are.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that they've been working on. There's some stuff that still needs some work. In terms of like respawn rates. That said, there's some other stuff there, like there are ways around that. And I'm going to give people a little cheat code. For instance, if you were standing at the forge with 30 other people, group up.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Get of the people standing around there, make a group of 5. It'll count your damage as a total, and then give to the groups with the highest total. So, some groups might not get on it if you've got 30 people sitting there, but everyone in the group of 5 will get on it, as long as, if you're the only group of 5 there, or just 5 random people are standing there, just get them into the group, and that'll actually really help you accelerate through. This is how McLeod and I don't stand around at these kind of events for very long. We're in, out, and we know those kind of arcane little bits of knowledge that you got to know somebody who knows something to have.
And we're talking specifically about when you have that quest objective of kill X, Y, or Z sort of boss, or particular sort of named NPC, right? And you've stood around there and they've respawned, but there's 20 other dudes there, and they just smash them down so fast that you feel like you and you definitely hit them, and you feel like you should have gotten you should have gotten credit for hitting them, as and playing a part and killing them, kind of thing. But it doesn't give you it. Like, so group up in that situation, because then that's how you get through those situations.
Yeah. The loot crates one actually drives me a bit nuts as well.
There's been
loot
situations
4 crates, and there's 4 crates there, but like one of them is like in like the
one of them
weirdest
doesn't.
spot.
No, or one of them doesn't actually give you one, like the quest objective or the quest item that you normally get out of it. Like there's like a 75% chance that you'll get the quest item from it, and you get all but one, and there's only you've gone through all of the loot kind of drawers from that area, and you have to wait for it to all respawn, which can be quite a punishing wait. Like, I'm glad they have removed a lot of that, because it used to be there used to be quite a lot of issues with that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. So that said, I wanna cut what we're talking about here. It's good conversation, but we've got a whole bunch more to cover.
We do. We actually do have
we are an hour in, and there is much more to cover. Obviously we can talk your ear off about New World for days, but let's hear some more from the devs here.
VentureBeat, yeah.
VentureBeat came out with a interview the other day, and this is kind of an interesting one.
It's almost like a sleeper article, right? Because like when you start reading it, it's like oh yeah, fair enough. They talk about various different things, but like there's actually sort of some very interesting stuff in here.
So a lot of this is I don't want to say not valuable, but like a lot of this in terms of like it doesn't break any new ground. It talks a lot about the feeling of running a studio as the game is getting closer and closer to launch. And
it gives you an idea of like what their sort of goals were, from some in some way from a business perspective, but also from a sort of like a because they had I can't remember the dude's name. They also they had a guy from AWS, like game support there. So you got kind of an idea and a perspective of like what it's like to support a game development. And when it comes to MMOs, that's MMOs are one of those games that require significant support from infrastructure.
Yeah. So we're gonna link this in the chat as well. If you guys want to go through and read the full thing, Richard Lawrence is one of the studio directors, but you've also got Eric Morales, who Eric works on the Lumberyard team. So his job is AWS and Lumberyard. As far as
which is not called, which is as far as I know, not actually called Lumberyard anymore, right?
Yes,
it's
it's
called
now
the Open 3D Engine.
Yeah. But he's got a substantial background with AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. For those that don't know, Amazon Web Services is, financially speaking, the pillar on which Amazon is built. The storefront being the visible part of their business. But realistically, they run a sizable portion of the internet. So when it comes to can they spool up new servers? Can they afford new servers? Asking Amazon if they can afford new servers is a joke.
As
they
like
already
not
have
only not only a significant portion of the internet, but also a large amount of the game servers that a lot of very popular titles are actually are actually played on. Like for example, Fortnite, right? that is, you know, the game servers for Fortnite are on AWS servers.
There is one part that I really wanted to hit on. You know, let me see if I can find it. They start talking about.
It was with regards to how they
actually quite a
spin
pretty
up.
long one.
Yeah, it was regard to how it was with regards to how they are able to spin up, you know, game servers, right? Like in different areas of the globe.
All right. So the question for AWS, what does that achieve for the game? You know, I imagine one thing would be that if you log in from anywhere in the world, you're going to have a good connection and experience. You don't have to wait for servers in Seattle or somewhere else. And you know, Rich has his thing, which, you know, great, but the important one is actually the other comment here. This is substantially more interesting.
Yeah, from Aaron.
On the AWS side, we have a track record of this. We mentioned Fortnite being able to have a session-based multiplayer game with lots of computationally challenging, ridiculously intense battles is something we've done before in partnership with Epic. Being able to do that on just about any continent, 25 plus regions scattered all over the world, is pretty impressive. To Richard's point, this is what this also helps underscore, that infrastructure is available with an API call, not a phone call. Basically, if they need to, all they have to do is ping a server and it can go live.
Yeah, they literally just run a command and like you know, a server farm kind of spools up, essentially, right?
Yep. You know, because they have servers all over the world now. You know, and their server farms that they have are not at full capacity. You know, you always have space for new clients coming in. You have servers that are not running. You're not buying the hardware to fit, you know, some new client, unless it's something that they need their own data center for. You know.
And the other thing is like spooling up a server farm just out of the blue, right? It isn't exactly an inexpensive thing to do. Like, it does cost to keep it to spool it up and to keep it running, and make, you know, and obviously to make sure that like there is support staff on hand there, and if anything like needs to happen in that regard, right? So you know, the things that they run on that farm, like, they need to at least make sure that it is financially viable.
Yes. So, you know, being able to automate scaling and launching a new game into a region, or into a new region, a new country, that's something we've thought long and hard about on the game tech side. We're helping customers like Amazon Games make their game successful. In the next wave of new markets, this is where things get important. We're about to launch a new region in Spain. We're about to launch a new region in Asia Pacific, in Jakarta, Indonesia. So, you know, functionally speaking, this gives a lot of opportunity for Amazon Games to expand and grow into other markets if they see a lot of connections coming from those places. You know, again, with it needs to be financially viable. You know, they need to be able to justify the cost of spooling up a server in one of these other locations. You know, I checked my ping towards the end of the alpha, and almost everywhere on the planet would be playable for me. Given I've got a great connection, but, you know, in terms of the latency, the ping was not bad. You know, so there were a few people who had high pings, And unfortunately, that's one of the challenges with some of these countries, and just very bad internet service. But hopefully this might be a stealth way of mentioning that they're looking at additional server infrastructure in the Asia Pacific area specifically. I know there was a huge calling for Asia Pacific servers. It would be a big deal for a lot of people. I know for once the Australians are happy because they got a Sydney server. But
very nice.
if you're connecting to Sydney and you're in South Korea, that's like connecting from I don't even know Lithuania.
It's like me connecting.
Nobody. I'm probably the only one in the room that knows where Lithuania is off the top of my head to the U.S. Like it's a substantial jump.
That's quite the routing.
Yeah, that's a lot of underwater cable right there. So things like that are actually really important. I think this might be a subtle way of saying, hey, they're working on something in the Asia Pacific. It could very well be something that that they grow into, and that if they see the need, that they might advance and take on. But I did want to mention this article's out there. If you guys want to read it, it's really long. I don't want to go through the whole thing with you guys, but I did want to mention that they, from a server side, this is actually really important to talk about. Their ability to spool up a new server by literally typing in a command is much different than is so much different. Let me put this out there: so much different than EA Games. If EA Games doesn't have enough servers for launch, they're turning to their partner, whoever it is that's hosting their servers, to get it right, and to build out, hopefully for to more servers than they have. This is why games like Final Fantasy XIV had to stop selling the game for a little bit to prevent new players from coming in order to ramp up server capacity. Because it wasn't an API call. It was a, hey guys, what's the new deal for server infrastructure if we need to,
if we need more servers,
6 more servers,
right? Exactly, right? Exactly. It was just funny. That was kind of a funny moment when people were like, well, hang on, how the hell is a digital, version of the game sold out?
That's definitely a moment where it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So we put that in the chat. That'll also be in the Discord for anybody who wants to read it. Totally recommend going checking out the Discord. If you guys are interested in chatting after the show, we'll be in there after the show for a little bit. But we also will have all of the early art, concept art, and all of that is all available in the Discord. We've been keeping track of that for years. There's a ton of really good resources.
Yeah. And talking about resources, there's also a bunch of community resources for, various different, almost, they're not actual cheats, but cheat sheets as such, basically quick ways of being able to understand how various different elements of the game kind of function at a moment's glance. Basically infographics about various different aspects of the game. Mm-hmm. That's a really cool resource as well. Yes, very quick references. Yeah.
Yes, quick reference sheets are really good. There's a bunch of really good ones that have been made from across the community. Apologies. Worth checking those out. Aside from that, we've got even more to cover tonight. So you guys are probably like, oh my god, how is there more? We want to talk a little bit about, or we want to talk more about the open beta as well as the patch notes for the open beta, because there was a lot there. But first, we want to talk about the numbers. Now, the open beta originally, for those that don't know, also because I see this in the chat here, if you have Discord Nitro, please, if you have available boosts in that, feel free to boost the Discord. We're looking to see if we can get that over the next barrier for our tier 3. So,
and that would be fantastic, because then we could actually get a say for example a custom URL, which is just like that is the thing that we'd love the most out of that.
Like, makes life much easier.
Oh yeah.
And of course it comes with a bunch of other benefits like increased audio quality and things like that. Which in the last couple of months has been kind of a stealth thing that we've done, because we hit our tier 2 on the server, and the audio quality on the show basically doubled. For instance, McLeod's voice should come through crystal clear, and has basically one step higher when it comes to the possibilities for Discord. So figured I'd hit on that quick, but let's talk about numbers for New World. So
yes,
the big thing when it comes to New World is that the plan for launch didn't include a delay. So, the open beta, I don't believe was supposed to be the way that it happened. It was making the best of, hey, we need more time. How I think things were supposed to happen was that the closed beta was supposed to roll into the open beta and basically extend it for another week. That said, that's not what happened. What happened in reality was, hey, we've noticed a bunch of problems. We need some more time to fix these. Brass tacks. We need this done. We need the time. Which, great. Now, knowing that everything had to be reset between them, and that servers had to be reshuffled, and a lot of the code base rebuilt, the player base wasn't going to be as big, because, simply put, there's a lot of people that invested a lot of time in the closed beta that just didn't want to play the open beta. And it's not because they missed the game or they didn't miss the game. It's not because they didn't do any of that. It's because not everybody has a couple hundred hours to throw down on another beta where their progress is going to be deleted. So that's an important thing to note in terms of why the numbers might not be as high as one might have expected. That said, they're still huge. This is double at its peak, this is double the concurrent player base of games like Rust, or what's another
hardcore
Steam-based game
PvP ago? How about Mortal Online 2? Maybe that's a bit harsh.
God, they're down to...
That's a bit harsh.
24-hour peak, yeah. So double Rust. Now, in terms of MMOs, there are very few MMOs that can be tracked as a specific player count. To give you an idea of one of them, I'm going to load up one of the older games out there. And we're going to talk about New World, or not New World, we're going to talk about EVE Online for a minute. Now, EVE Online, people would argue, is still alive.
Barely.
but it's still there. Let's go EVE's full history here. Is it really not? There we go. Okay, so it's still in the ballpark of 30K. That's an MMO. That's the official numbers of concurrent users in game. I'm just using it because it's an MMO. Obviously, like, it's nowhere near the same market. Like, I'd love to use actual numbers from like Final Fantasy or something like that, but unfortunately, they don't release their concurrent player counts. There are estimates, but there are no official numbers. So, but comparatively as an MMO, hitting that aspect of an open beta, 141,000 users or 200,000 users in the closed beta, concurrent users. That means your player base is substantially larger. Because that means 200,000 people were playing at that moment. That doesn't mean that only 200,000 people were playing. That means at that moment in time, 200,000 people had the client open. From there, you've got the aspect of so much more. The total community size is arguably easily into the millions.
I'm fairly certain about that. Like the other thing to note about these numbers is, along with I think I'm fairly certain many people here, many people in the chat know people who, are very much interested in New World, but were like, it's only going to be 4 days. Like, I'm just going to wait for the release, right? Wait for the full release, right? So a lot of people, skipped out of playing the actual open beta, mainly because they played the closed, they potentially did, play the closed beta, and so they got a kind of a good feel as to what the game was like and whether they would like it or whether they wouldn't like it, kind of thing. Specifically from that. And alongside that as well, you had the for the closed beta, you had the the massive sort of streamer versus streamer kind of event, right, that was going on, which drew a lot of hype, right? A lot of hype. And that hype basically pushed the concurrent player count to just over 200,000. And with none of that hype, but just an open beta, and only 4 days, rather than what was it, did it go 2 weeks or was it like 12 days? I can't remember off the top of my head, but like a substantially longer period of time, in the closed beta, like, you still hit 141,668. Like, that is impressive. Like, that is
Absolutely.
really, really impressive and good, and a really, really good indication that there's a lot of people who are very interested in this game, and a lot of people who are noticing the game and trying the game out as well.
Now and this is echoed in the chat here, but one of the kickers, and you'll see this in every kind of closed beta, open beta, any kind of beta where the progress is going to get reset, is towards the later days, less people will log in. And this is because your progress is going to reset, so you get that feeling of, why am I doing this? Why am I grinding the level? Why am I pushing for the super high level? Just to have it reset on me again. So there's a lot of people that have hit that point of, hey, I've tried it, I like it. The purpose of the open beta was, hey, go out, try it, see if you like it. And then from there it was, okay, now they like it, sign up, pre-order, and get ready for launch. Simple as that. Play around with the weapons, see which ones you like, and just kind of get yourself in a position where you're ready to go for launch, which should happen on the 28th. I don't foresee a delay. I don't.
No.
I think that they added on the time that they needed. I think that there is still some stuff that they need to fix. I know they've got a rather large known issues list. I'm going to probably break my computer by doing this, but
fingers crossed. All right, yeah. Oh, there we go. Oh, saved my eyes.
There we go. All right. Fundamentally, there were a decent amount of issues that they knew about ahead of time. We saved all of these from the forums, but there were a decent amount of issues that they knew about prior to. That means they're apologies for the cough. I've been, as I said at the beginning, I've been getting over the flu. Normally, I've got a mute on my headset, but unfortunately, on the studio headset, I don't have one, and I've got to dig out a program
exactly
to hit the mute button.
And you can't exactly sort of like suddenly, look away and cough because like the microphone goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that I've got a different setup, I should look at getting the other mic back and see how that works in here.
Yeah. Well, we could definitely look at that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the known issues list here, right? Like, when you look at the sort of us scrolling through it, you may kind of think like, holy crap, they have a lot of stuff that they need to fix in the game. Like, it may seem that way. A lot of these things are very pernickety. They're very small and very, sort of cosmetically kind of like some aren't obviously, but there are definitely some that are very cosmetically, small kind of things to fix.
Yeah.
But there are
Embossed
definitely things that
contain dye
kind
channels which don't function. Okay, like
but there are things that do kind of work.
Yeah.
Are sort of like things that they do need to address. Like, for one, I found a bug relating to lock-on targeting when it comes to using the life staff. Right, that basically crashed the game. I found that on the Sunday. Kind of near to the end of the open beta, in actual fact, and thankfully I was recording at the time, so I have a full recording of what happened in that regard, and I was able to go back in and try it out, see if I could repeat the process, which I was able to, and so that's with Amazon Games, that's with the devs, with data, with a data dump export as well. And video of exactly how that occurred, so hopefully that's fixed as well.
So I mean, this is I'm still scrolling through it here, but there's a ton of things that they're still working on. Obviously
it's a big
building game. It's a big game. They do also have a very large staff. It was revealed relatively recently that they have more than 200 people on their staff. So it's not an insubstantial amount of people working these problems. There's a lot of code base to dig through, but I think that they've given themselves the time that they need to work on these things. Ideally, we would also talk about the patch notes, because unfortunately we didn't stream during the open beta, because me being just about either dead with the flu or buried in the game, because we didn't stream, we never really covered the patch notes. But I want to hit on a couple of the key ones that we noticed, and it's some of the ones that didn't make the list.
Yes, because there were definitely things that were changed that didn't hit the list.
Yeah, and it was some surprising ones, like the ability to respawn. That's a highly unexpected one to have break, or to have change like it did in the open beta, where you couldn't respawn.
Because that was definitely a deliberate change. Like they removed that option for you to straight up just suicide yourself wherever and whenever you wanted. Like, obviously, you could run yourself into a mob and like, or sort of get a level 5 wolf to sort of slowly gnaw at you until you're dead, kind of thing. But in terms of like just standing on a cliff face or standing in the middle of some random place with nothing around and just murdering yourself in order to respawn somewhere, like they removed that functionality, and I'm actually really glad that they did.
Yes. From there was a couple of others. I'm trying to move.
They changed camps, like they changed your ability to be able to respawn on camps, right? So you basically have to be within 500 meters of your camp that you put down in order to respawn on it, essentially. And that was a really good change as well, because a lot of people were using camps as essentially another way of being able to just travel, like essentially almost teleport like vast distances in the map.
Yes.
Albeit with a bit of a durability cost, but like although those times, like that durability cost is negligible.
I know. I used to use my camp. I'd go put my camp up way in the north, and then go tool around in the south. And then when I wanted to actually like go do stuff, I would kill myself and go up to the top.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was real easy to abuse a lot of the quests. So like the PvP quests, a lot of them happen in the same area, by design, and that really, like, being able to just like kill yourself, show up at a camp, and like cut out half the running, is not how those should work.
You could abuse faction PvE quests, but not PvP quests, because essentially if you have PvP quests like active, like if you die, like suicide or anything, right? If you die, that's cancelled. Like, so it wasn't really a case that you could abuse PvP quests, but maybe people were kind of getting a little bit confused when people were talking about faction quests. There was definitely faction PvE quests that you could definitely abuse, using that respawn mechanic and using well-placed camps in various locations.
Yeah. We know there was at least one respawn thing that would with camps that was an issue for PvP.
With it was actually, wasn't it? It was a kind of a leveling bug, right?
Yeah.
People were using as well.
Exploit, type behavior that definitely is not. It's the kind of thing that's going to get you banned real quick. The example I'm thinking of is the having 15, 20 guys from the other faction go stand at a camp, use that camp as their respawn point and kill them all over and over again, to massively level both yourself and your weapons.
And you'd ask, like, well, you have to sweeten the deal quite considerably for like people from another faction to allow themselves to be murdered in that kind of way, right? But like the other thing that a lot of people didn't realize as well was, you got this when you it is in the dialogue, but like when you actually joined a faction, you essentially got a free sort of one-time ability to change your faction before the cooldown kind of hits, before the cooldown starts, that 120-day cooldown. So a lot of people are basically saying that certain groups would split off once they found out this sort of thing. Certain groups like split off into two different factions, and we're basically sort of pushing themselves higher and higher in terms of leveling, and then when they got to whatever level that they felt was necessary, one side would flip over to the other and consolidate themselves, essentially.
Yeah.
Whether that actually occurred, I'm not entirely certain. It may have happened on certain servers. I don't think it happened on the server that we were on. I didn't see large roving gangs of like level 60s running about. So if if you were playing the open beta and you saw like large groups of level 60s running about like super early, then that may have been the case. That may have been what they were using, what they were doing. But I definitely didn't see that much instance of it, and I don't think too many people did.
Yeah. So that obviously there were some things that were not in a working condition. So in certain instances, some of the bosses would get stuck in a retreating status, and wouldn't they don't reset until they hit their original anchor point. The problem with that is, of course, if you bug out something like the Forge Master, it makes them unkillable, which also prevents people from completing the quest line. You gotta remember things like that are actually relatively easy to fix. It seems, to the player that, hey, this is, super game breaking. Agreed. That said, it's as easy as, if, adding an if statement, if in a retreating status for more than, 30 seconds to a minute, just respawn. Like adding something like that, functionally speaking, would rapidly change how those work. And would, fix 99% of the problems that happen there. They could also fix whatever they're getting stuck on too, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, a lot of people had an issue when it comes to bugs with oh god, what was the name of the dude? I do have it actually listed down somewhere.
It was Ezra the Forge Master was one of the big ones.
That's the dude. Yeah, that was the dude. So a lot of people had issue with that because you'd either like you would every so often, for whatever reason, glitch into structures and stuff that made it sort of difficult, basically almost near enough impossible to kill. And so a lot of people had the issue with it being stuck, not killable, and because it's a required part of the storyline quest, especially with the initially, forging your Azoth staff, right, in order to actually be able to do certain parts of the content that's available, like all the breaches and stuff. Like it was something that a lot of people smacked their heads against because they couldn't get past it for whatever reason in various different servers. So but there were some other kind of things as well in some of the side quests, where some of the side quests were sort of like a faction item, or some of the side quest items weren't dropping in certain places. But side quest stuff is a little bit less of a priority for Amazon games than a mainline story quest issue, right? And so, yeah, I'm fairly certain they definitely got a lot of feedback specifically about Ezra. So hopefully that gets fixed.
Yes.
But yeah, that was the one that I remember seeing a lot on the forums.
Mm-hmm. So I want to take a moment and. Or probably more than a moment here. And let's... The fact that Windows still defaults this as the program is a problem.
Don't freak out, it takes a minute to get through the door because we all have to hold E to get out.
This isn't the one I want it to be. This is the defense. Where's my offense file? Sorry, I'm looking for a file in the background here. During the open beta, we were participants in several wars. And as this one plays, I'm going to
So yeah, there
so
was
the war
some-
performance
so-
actually really increased. There was no major bugs. I crashed out once, but that was
and
probably
there's going
more
to be
to do
people
with
who
like me playing for 14 hours at that point.
there's going to be people who didn't play the open beta, who played the closed beta, who are like, you're in the fort. Why are you stacking up on the actual gate rather than jumping off the fortifications? Well, that's because they changed that, and you can't jump off the fortifications. As far as I know, from the start of the game. So you have to go through the gates. Now, I think personally that that's not the optimal way to go. My personal opinion is, when it comes to wars, that there should be sort of like sort of like low level fortifications, or like a area to stand on for the war camp that allows you to vault over the war camp kind of walls, basically to allow you to have the similar amount of being able to get out of the war camp that defenders do when they jump off the fortification walls at the fort. I think going and doing preventing you from jumping off the fort walls to sort of make it a little bit more even in comparison I personally think that's the wrong way to go. I could be in the minority, I have no idea, but I just not being able to jump off fortification walls for some esoteric reason is a bit weird.
So you guys can see that obviously, like, this is pretty well done. One thing I'd like to note is that the fire damage is actually incredibly buffed. Like, you can see, like, the toxic ground type, AoEs are actually very effective now. Much more so than they have been in the past.
And we're not saying that, like, we're not specifying specifically, like, that the people have radically changed how they're approaching those point capture fights. The AoE that's going down, the AoE damage that's going down, the AoE heals that are going down, the point defense from the fort, the point attacking siege weaponry from the that are being put down by the attackers. Like, that is all exactly the same kind of all the fundamentals and it's exactly the same that we had in the closed beta. The difference, there seems to be a difference though.
Yes.
Because there seems to be a fundamental lack of capacity to be able to retain your health on a point when all of that is happening.
You'll notice it's very difficult to stay alive. There's a lot of AoE damage. I don't believe that heals stack anymore. I think that that's something that was stealth done in the background. Because, like, you can see we're standing inside a lot of healing circles there, and at most you only see the 2 tickers. For
we have, so and that's the interesting thing is we have, like, footage from previous battles as well where we see more than 2. In multiple instances. I think sometimes even
so, like, right
4.
here, I'm inside several of our own circles, and it's just not it's not keeping up, and it's not, I don't believe that it's stacking, which in my opinion is a good thing.
So what I wonder is, like, is whether the what do you call them, the status effects, right, that you see I wonder whether the status effects are actually being grouped up, or whether they're considered individual. Because I think they're being grouped up. It's not obvious. Let's put it this way: it's not obvious whether the status symbols are being sort of grouped together in order to declutter the status effect kind of area of your UI. Like there, you're standing in like what 3 or 4 or 5 different kind of things, right? And there's only one
pain to try
healing status effect.
Yeah.
So whether it's I think that it might be down to, it might be stacking the status effects into or grouping the status effects into the relevant kind of thing, but we don't know. It certainly provides a lot less information as to whether you're going to be capable of holding your being able to survive in that situation. Although I imagine your health deteriorating quite significantly is probably also a good sign of that. But as you can kind of see in the footage, when that starts to occur, typically you don't exactly have that much time or even potentially that much capability of being able to get out of that situation, which is an interesting. And obviously, you do have to do your usual kind of thing of having your shield up and blocking to get the best sort of capability of mitigating that damage. But like you should be getting, I kind of feel like you should be getting more heals. Whether that's a good thing, whether that's a bad thing, more heals, less heals. That is a very much a debatable kind of thing. But yeah, like what we kind of experienced there is very much like what Nutty in the chat is kind of saying, that the fire damage specifically, and potentially the fire damage from fire cannons and from regular cannons as well, was pretty significant.
Yeah, I actually have another clip here that I'm going to start up. This is from an attack on Everfall, and it gives a different view, and I want to highlight a specific moment.
If anybody's
in the fight,
if anybody's attacked Everfall as well, that Everfall is possibly the hardest to take in terms of just the terrain, basically being very much against an attacker, so long as the defenders are at least moderately competent, right?
So this right here is our attempted push at B. We're all cycling to the right because we got a group trying to distract them over to C, and we're trying to minimize the number of people that they see going to B here. But this right here is like the MVP play. Our siege group was crumbling. They clearly had no idea what they were doing. Getting this up is huge. This was
someone noticed what you did straight there and was like, nah. But like, thankfully you got raised by somebody who's
one of their turrets took me out, and then then I realized, okay, hey, I can't sit in this turret because people are just going to shoot me. But the turret reloads without me being in the seat, so I can make the point incredibly toxic to be on just by putting this turret here. So
and we'd attempted to get B like multiple times, and it just wasn't really possible. Like it just wasn't possible with the sort of line of sight for the cannons that they had on the fortifications. They were basically laying down like an absolute barrage of AoE damage onto that point. We just couldn't soak up. Like it was a non-starter. You tried to soak up the damage, it just didn't happen, and maybe sort of one or two of their guys kind of sort of somewhat semi-ritualistically sacrificed themselves by going in and just CCing everybody who had shields up. just to remove them from the point, kind of thing, remove their ability to mitigate damage. But yeah, like the fact that we took this point was I could not figure out how that actually happened until Ace was like, yeah, that was me. That was basically almost all me. Like, just literally putting down the right turret in the right location and using it intelligently.
I'm gonna go back about 5 seconds in this clip here.
Look,
this is the appropriate application of siege equipment. Like,
well, no, yours was the appropriate application. Every other turret there was terrible. Aside from maybe that cannon.
Yeah,
maybe.
So this cannon is fine, because this cannon's job shouldn't be to hit the point. This cannon's job should be to hit their turrets up on the wall and take them out. There should be 1 or 2 of those in the back at all times that are just hitting their turrets, constantly dealing damage to them, so that you can kill those turrets, because when defense loses a turret, it's gone for good. You can't rebuild it. But when offense loses a turret, they can rebuild it as long as they have points for it. Now, you look at all these repeaters. Repeaters deal damage to 1 person. I'm going to go back a couple minutes here, and now you can see all of the white damage here. 300, 330, 380, 425, 125, that's one tick. That's, if I had shot 1 person with a repeater, sure, it would have dealt a little bit more damage to that 1 person, but it only hits 1.
That would, exactly.
It's a game of taking that point. It's all about AoE. So how do you protect defensive turrets? Defensive turrets are completely different, because you have siege equipment, or your siege tools, that you can use to repair those turrets. So part of the job of your siege, team is to siege team and muskets is to get people to take out the enemy turret gunners, so that you have enough time to repair your turrets with your siege equipment. That's actually really important for defense. Otherwise, you'll lose your turrets really quickly, and
But the thing of note here is the amount of repeater turrets so close to the point.
Yeah. Now,
so damn close.
If you look at the numbers that are being stacked up here, like, that's a lot of damage that I'm applying. Imagine if all of these repeaters were fire turrets instead. The amount of damage would be insurmountable to be standing on that point as an enemy. You are allowed to place 10 of these turrets.
And you can like disassemble the turrets as well. This is the thing, like, you can't, it's not a case of like you put it down, you use all of the ammunition in there, right? You go and you try and sort of buy an ammunition pouch. You don't have the amount of points available to do it, and you just decide, oh, I'm going to go and do something else. Well, the thing is, when you have deployables that have a limit to the amount of deployables that you can put down, like an empty turret that you can't disassemble, that other people can't disassemble, is a real pain in the ass. So in the situation, if you ever put down a turret in a 50-on-50, like, for the love of God, if you're not going to use it, go back to it and disassemble it. Jesus Christ.
Now, the other thing is, you'll note that I just placed a T1 turret. These are all T1 turrets, so there's no downside to taking these down. You can, and you just watch me take it down, because we took the point. I no longer care about that turret, because it is not in position to help us at all take C. Now, what the rest of the siege team should have done is downed their turrets, because they should have had a lot of either kills or enough battle points that they could buy another turret with some ammo bags, and then go out and replace turrets behind C, so that you can then lob shit onto C where your army is in front of you. The problem with
And
Everfall is Everfall C is so far away from the attacker camp, and it's got literally a fucking mountain in the way. And it's one of the few maps that actually has this kind of obstacle.
Like you if you pop haste, like just as you're going out, like you're gonna run out of it just as you get to sea. Like, you know, if you popped haste before you're able to get out of it, out of the war camp, and your intention was to go to sea, like you could run out of haste before you get to sea. Like that's how far away sea is. It's kind of ridiculous. It may not look like that there's a huge amount, or big distance when you look at it on the map. But the thing is, that mountain.
That moment when somebody else gets in my turret.
Oh yeah, dude, I hate that.
Oh my god. If you're gonna be this so here's the thing: we didn't win this fight, and it's because of things like this. Like, that was one of our siege people. Like, being totally honest, go get your own turret. Like, if you were part of the siege team, go get your own turret. Like, I was not part of the siege team, and I was the only one who had put a turret out here, aside from the one that pops up next to me, and then is never used again.
Yeah, and it's a repeater turret as well. Like, one of the...
and it's like, if you were able to place 5 AoE fire cannons on that point, God help anyone trying to stand on that point.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jesus.
Use the repeaters. Use the repeaters and cannons to shoot their cannons and keep their siege off of the point, because you can knock their people off their siege turrets. From there, you turn around and make sure that your guys are applying as much damage as they physically can, and getting as many of your guys physically on the point as possible. So the list that we showed, the patch notes and the known open beta known issues, we will put both of those in the Discord as available Google Docs post show. So those will be out once we're done here. But I wanted to showcase this because this is actually really important stuff to know for wars. And unfortunately, there's a lot of groups out there that don't know this. Also, if you're ever taking Everfall, as an attacker, don't attack.
Don't
let C be the last point. Don't
oh god.
Let A be the last point or B be the last point, because it's so much easier to get to. C is the last thing you want to try and take.
Oh. Yeah, that C point was Jesus. That was bad. And the fact that they had cannons literally staring at the at that point, and cannon operators as well that weren't being shot out or weren't even being harassed that much was a particular point of contention that I had. I just about
died when their siege team said, "We've hit the deployable limit. We can't deploy anything on C." I literally was like, "You guys, just go demolish the shit that we have on B." Why is this even a discussion? The deployment limit is not an issue here.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, we had a discussion after the battle, and I mean, could you describe my my state as irate, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you've ever heard me as irate.
The other guy just abandons his turret. Sure, it's being swarmed with people, but you can still pop in at fire before somebody kicks you out of it. You just got to know how to do these things.
The other thing is, if you're being hit, jumping in.
Look at all of that damage. Look at all of that damage. So many ticks of damage there. Imagine if we had had a competent siege group that like really knew what they were doing.
And the funny thing is, like, you know, you kind of think like oh, maybe sort of like fighting that guy that's trying to take the siege cannon out, or potentially, you know, hitting me every so often on there might be the better idea before getting up onto the turret. Honestly, in that situation, you doing infinitely more for the actual progress of that battle by just sucking it up and like jumping onto that chair and like lobbing another one of those another one of those projectiles in there. So Aza's from the US, I'm from the UK. Like somehow we look similar for whatever reason. I don't know. Call it charm.
This is late in the fight. We've taken B and A. Look at all these turrets. Like there's a turret way over here. This does no one any good. This doesn't have any ammo. Why are they out? They're not upgraded. Like, like why are we using repeaters on B?
And then
when
they're
B
not
doesn't
in
even exist as a point anymore.
And they're not even in positions to be able to effectively hit any gunners or any of the like turrets on the actual fortifications of the fort. Like, they're literally the quintessential like they're the best example of useless siege equipment.
Yeah. So obviously we lose this. You can see me.
It's got to the point where it's like, well, nobody's listening in all the regular channels, so we might as well put it into Army, right?
So naturally we lose this fight, but like I wanted to show these videos, give people a good opportunity to see this. This wasn't our best performance, but like, okay, here's the thing. Look at this. I just saw this. This is all kinds of bad. So many kinds of bad right here. I spawn in. Somebody is trying to put up another turret over here.
Jesus.
Why? You can't even see C from there. Like,
you can't see C. You can barely even see any of the turrets on the fortifications.
Yeah. And you're exposed to like 3/4 of the turrets on the enemy base by sitting there instead of going behind C, which is where you're supposed to set these things up. So bad. Meanwhile, this one's out of ammo. This one doesn't even have a gunner in it. That one back there is out of ammo and just sitting there. That one is down by our base for some reason. This one's actually upgraded, but I'm like, oh, fine. I guess I'll just,
I mean, look how far away it is. Like,
yeah, like you can't even hit the fortification from there without like lobbing it way into the sky. It's like I don't even know if I'm getting close to C at this point. Like, I'm just lobbing them over, seeing if I can hit something. Like
at that point, you should have just like hollered at me and been like, let me know if you suddenly see like things lobbing in and actually doing damage.
At this kind of range, you can't see the damage being applied, but look up in the top corner here. This is one of those things that you need to pay attention to. If you're applying damage outside of a certain range, you no longer see the damage things, but special assists. This means I'm hitting things. NWO is not aligned with PAX. Although we do have some friends in PAX.
We know people in PAX. Although there are larger gaming communities than PAX out there that, you know, seemingly play New World.
Also, like this turret. So look at how this is set up. Look at how this is set up. It is set 90 degrees off on the fort, pointed at C, pointed left of C. Like,
it could potentially be maybe one of the only redeeming repeaters on being.
Oh no.
Potentially.
This turret should have been faced almost 90 degrees to the right, looking at the thing, so that if we did magically take C from this useless position, then maybe this turret would have a redeeming factor in being able to hit the entire right-hand side of the fort.
Yeah.
But instead, these only turn 180 degrees, so 90 degrees of its attack range is off towards our base.
Oh, yeah, okay, no, yeah, I get you. It's like...
Because, I hop in it, and I instantly turn to the right, and that's as far as I could turn. And it's like, no.
Oh my god.
Oh, all right. So as you guys can tell, we're just having fun with this now. We're gonna wrap up the content. We'll eventually put up some videos with with these points of view, with McLeod's point of view for these same fights. And again, we want to thank you guys. There was a ton of follows throughout the show. Thank you guys. Thank you for any of the subs. I want to thank our Patreons. Want to thank our Discord boosters. Want to thank everybody who's just here watching. Like, you guys are the reason we do this, and functionally
Watching,
speaking,
chatting.
we wouldn't do it without you. So, keep tuned. We'll have more shows coming up, especially now that I'm not deathly ill. If you want to chat post-show, we'll be in the Public Voice 1 on the Discord. And we look forward to chatting with you guys. And if you want to check out the Twitter, the YouTube, and all that, McLeod's linking all the stuff. But till then, we'll see you guys in the New World.